Just because he chats with a female colleague for a few brief moments, this unfortunate man gets caught by his girlfriend. Not only does the girlfriend unalive that female colleague right before his eyes, but she even acts all sweet and innocent after the fact. Today, I am bringing you the latest 2026 thriller masterpiece, Obsession. The film is a massive success in both box office and reviews, grossing $287.2 million worldwide and becoming Focus Feature's highest-grossing film of all time. Without further ado, let's dive straight into the movie. The story kicks off with a confession rehearsal. In a New York restaurant, a man is practicing his confession, but because he is too nervous, he rambles incoherently and cannot find the point for the longest time. The man is named Bear, and the object of his confession is his colleague, Nikki. Bear has had a crush on Nikki for a very long time, yet he repeatedly hesitates to make his move. Watching the rambling Bear, his good friend Ian puts a stop to his practice from the side. Ian thinks Bear is too weak, and if he were in her shoes, he will absolutely never like such a cowardly man. After giving it some thought, Ian comes up with a plan. He proposes to throw a party tonight where Bear will invite Nikki out, because as long as they get Nikki drunk, Bear will have his chance. Hearing his friend's persuasion, Bear also thinks it makes sense. Leaving the restaurant, Bear begins to agonize over how to find an excuse to invite Nikki out. However, even by the time he arrives home, he still has not thought of a reason. Just as Bear is feeling depressed, he looks up only to discover that the cat he has raised since childhood is dead in the house for some unknown reason. Looking at the little cat on the floor, Bear is deeply heartbroken, so he has no choice but to put the date aside for now and start dealing with the deceased kitten. By the time Bear finishes cleaning up, it is already evening. Returning to his bedroom, he opens Nikki's social media platform and begins watching her day, which is one of his mandatory daily routines. But just as he is completely engrossed, Nikki suddenly calls him. It turns out Ian has already set up the party for tonight, but Bear completely forgets about it. Since it is getting late, Bear wants to find an excuse to decline. But before he can finish his sentence, Nikki's screams echo from the other end of the line.
Tonight's the night.
God damn it!
Are you okay?
No, I just dropped my crystal necklace down the drain.
Oh shit.
Ah!
Hearing that Nikki needs help, Bear feels this is his golden opportunity, so he tells Nikki to wait because he will be right there. Leaving his house, Bear does not rush to the agreed location, but instead visits an accessory shop in another neighborhood. The female sales clerk enthusiastically introduces the various meanings of the crystal necklaces to him. Purple represents luck, red signifies love, and blue denotes anticipation. Looking at the dazzling array of crystals on the shelves, Bear is temporarily at a loss for how to choose. Ultimately, he selects a yellow crystal that represents protection. While waiting for the clerk to wrap it up, Bear notices the One Wish willow displayed on the shelf, which is said to grant a person one wish after being snapped. Although he knows this kind of toy is merely psychological comfort, Bear buys a box anyway. Leaving the accessory shop, Bear arrives at the meetup bar. His friends Ian and Sarah have already arrived ahead of time, and Nikki is currently venting to Sarah about her previous ordeal. Meanwhile, Bear is like a log, only knowing how to sit there blankly. Looking at the zoning out Bear, Ian across from him shoots him a look, signaling him to strike up a conversation quickly. Yet the timid Bear repeatedly hesitates to speak up. Just then, Nikki proposes going to the bar counter to buy drinks, and Bear spots the opportunity to follow her. Because he checks Nikki's social media feed every single day, Bear knows exactly what she likes to drink. So he orders the same flavor as Nikki and successfully strikes up a conversation with her. However, even after agonizing for quite a while, he still fails to find an opportunity to give her the gift. The frustrated Bear can only look for a chance while chatting, but by the time the party ends, he still has not found a valid reason. Seeing his procrastinating friend, Ian creates one last opportunity for him by making an excuse to drive Sarah home, leaving Bear to drop Nikki off. Right on the way home, Bear finally brings up the matter of the gift. Upon learning that Bear has prepared a gift for her, Nikki is also extremely happy, and since she simultaneously discovers Bear's crush on her, she takes the opportunity to drop a hint. However, the cowardly Bear fails to catch Nikki's drift, missing the opportunity yet again. Looking at the oblivious Bear, a frustrated Nikki has no choice but to get out of the car. Watching Nikki walk away, Bear can only stew in regret inside his car, wanting to call out to her but lacking the courage entirely. Right at this moment, he remembers the One Wish willow from the accessory shop. Consequently, Bear snaps it and makes a wish.
I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the fucking world.
Seeing Nikki suddenly appear at his doorstep, Bear is completely stunned. Before he can figure out what is going on, Nikki walks over and brings up the necklace, which makes Bear finally realize that he has not given her the necklace yet. He uses the excuse that he has left it at home, stating that he will bring it over when they go to work tomorrow. But Nikki is somewhat impatient, so she directly hops into the car and proposes going back to Bear's place to retrieve it. Watching Nikki get into the car, Bear is caught a bit off guard, yet his timid self still dares not take that next step. Just as he wants to find an excuse to refuse, Nikki suddenly bursts into tears.
I just don't know if I can be alone right now.
Why?
My dad's dying.
Nikki, no. I'm so sorry.
I just took one step inside my house and I couldn't.
Hearing Nikki's tearful complaints, Bear feels rather bad and truly does not know how to reject her, so he brings her back to his rented apartment. Much to Bear's surprise, Nikki is incredibly open, actively taking off her shirt the second she steps into the room. Witnessing this scene, Bear can no longer hold himself back. However, just as Nikki is about to kiss him, she suddenly pushes him away in a panic. Looking at the bizarre Nikki, Bear is utterly bewildered. Yet before he can utter a word, Nikki begins to weep once more. Bear assumes Nikki is remembering her critically ill father, which is why her emotions are so unstable. Due to this sudden interruption, their passionate momentum is forced to a halt, leaving Bear with no choice but to hold Nikki and sleep through the night. Early the next morning, a groggy Bear is awakened from his slumber by a racket of clattering pots and pans. He looks back only to find Nikki busy in the kitchen. Bear happily heads to the kitchen, but the moment he enters, he sees that the little cat he wrapped up yesterday is pulled out again, with several candles and flowers placed on the floor. Hearing Nikki's explanation, Bear finds it a bit difficult to stomach for a moment, but out of politeness, it is hard for him to say anything. After a quick breakfast, they rush over to the music shop where they work. Bear is a salesperson and repair technician at the store. Seeing Bear actually arrive together with Nikki, Ian looks completely surprised, pulling Bear into a corner to ask what happened last night. Bear does not hide anything either, spilling everything about him and Nikki getting together.
That's all. Her dad has cancer. Really? That's what she told me. Her dad in Washington that she doesn't care about. It still hurts, I guess. I don't know.
Upon learning that Nikki's father has a terminal illness, Ian finds it a bit strange because he has never heard of this at all. Although he finds it slightly odd, Bear does not read too much into it, and over the next few days, he and Nikki enter a honeymoon phase where they stick together no matter what they are doing. This weekend, while Bear is on a date with Nikki at a restaurant, Ian suddenly calls him. Bear assumes there is a dinner gathering tonight, but when he answers the phone, he learns a certain piece of information about Nikki from Ian's mouth.
I looked into Nikki's dad having cancer. He's been to work like every day, and he's healthy as a baby.
Why would she lie about that, Ian?
Finding out that Nikki's father is not sick at all, Bear is also stupefied, yet he cannot fathom why Nikki would lie. Ian thinks of a possibility, where a recent online rumor claims that some girls run up massive debts, and to pay them off, they will find multiple boyfriends. Yet, Bear hasn't noticed any signs of Nikki being in debt, nor has she ever borrowed any money from him. Ian feels there must be some underlying reason behind this, so he warns his bro to be absolutely careful. Hearing Ian's warning, Bear also thinks it makes a lot of sense. In the past, Nikki always gave him the cold shoulder, but ever since that night, her attitude has suddenly shifted drastically, making him wonder if she really has some ulterior motive for approaching him. The utterly bewildered Bear returns to the dining table and asks Nikki about her father.
Does your dad really have cancer?
No.
Watching the suddenly worked up Nikki, Bear is completely stunned, prompting him to hurriedly grab her and apologize for his rudeness just now. But Bear has no idea that Nikki's approach toward him isn't for money at all, and the terrifying part is only just beginning. In the evening, the sound-asleep Bear is jolted awake by a strange noise, and when he looks back, he finds that Nikki beside him has vanished. Just as he is wondering what is going on, he turns his head only to discover a figure sitting in the corner. Staring at the bizarre Nikki, Bear is completely dumbfounded. While he is agonizing over how to coax Nikki back, Nikki, who was weeping just a second ago, suddenly switches up her demeanor entirely as she actively returns to bed and lies down right next to Bear. However, this isn't even the most outrageous part. The next day, Bear prepares to head out for work, but when he reaches the door, he finds it completely sealed shut with tape. And Nikki's reason is even more bizarre, as she feels today isn't a good day for work and wants Bear to stay home to keep her company. Looking at the smiling Nikki, Bear only feels a cold shiver running down his spine. He exerts a tremendous amount of effort just to get the door open. But as Bear turns around and leaves, he fails to notice that Nikki, who stays at home, looks a bit off. Nikki's creepiness leaves Bear unable to focus on work all morning, since he feels her need for control is absurdly off the charts, to the point where she has even pasted photos all over his lunchbox. Sarah also feels that Nikki has been a bit strange lately, but to save face, she finds it hard to call her out directly. While they are chatting, Bear suddenly senses that today's sandwich tastes a bit off, as if the meat stuffed inside has gone bad. Bear doesn't think much of it either, assuming the meat has just been sitting in the fridge for too long. In the evening, he heads off work and goes home just like any other day. Staring at the apartment not far away, a deep sense of resistance wells up from the bottom of Bear's heart. Yet, the moment he recalls Nikki's weeping and wailing, he feels a bit soft-hearted again. After agonizing in his car for a few minutes, he still decides to go home. Just as he opens the car door, music suddenly starts playing from inside his backpack. He unzips the backpack and discovers that the sound is coming from the packaging box of the previous One Wish Willow. Looking at the box in his hand, Bear remembers the wish he made, wondering if Nikki's recent behavioral changes are tied to his wish. Thinking of this, Bear places a call to the customer service of One Wish Willow, wanting to alter his wish. However, upon hearing Bear's request, the voice on the other end states that the wish will only become void if either he or Nikki passes away. Suddenly, he hears the sound of Nikki screaming hysterically on the other end of the line, so Bear hurriedly hangs up the phone. However, the very moment he gets home, he catches sight of Nikki looking completely disheveled. Seeing Bear return, Nikki dashes into the bathroom to start washing up. But as Nikki walks away, Bear notices a stain on the floor, which happens to be the exact spot where the kitten was previously placed. Smelling the foul odor coming from the floor, Bear remembers the afternoon sandwich, wondering if the meat Nikki gave him actually belonged to the kitten. This outrageous scene makes Bear feel rather squeamish, so he wants to question Nikki, but Nikki gives no response. Right then, Bear remembers that Ian invited him to a party, and since he doesn't really want Nikki to tag along, he lies and claims it's a boys' night out. Yet, Nikki insists on coming along anyway. With no other choice, Bear can only bring Nikki along to the party. However, once they arrive at the party, Nikki clings to Bear again, denying him any chance to interact with anyone else. Just then, a friend proposes playing Truth or Dare, where whoever draws the box on the table must execute the action according to the slip of paper inside. Everything starts off quite normal, and everyone is having a blast, until a friend draws a card to switch seats, causing Bear to be moved to the opposite side. But right when it's Bear's turn, he happens to draw the dare to kiss the person on his left. Bear looks back, only to find that the person on his left is his colleague Sarah. Yet upon seeing Bear's slip of paper, Nikki across from him abruptly stands up, approaches Sarah from behind, and drags her chair away. Looking at Nikki right beside him, Bear can only helplessly kiss her. The atmosphere of the party instantly turns rather awkward. Nevertheless, Nikki completely disregards the looks from onlookers, even packing on the PDA with Bear. The embarrassed Bear wants to take Nikki and leave, but out of nowhere, the previously joyful Nikki suddenly starts screaming, seemingly seeing something as she hides in the corner in sheer panic. Before anyone present can figure out what is going on, Nikki grabs a wine bottle off the table. Nikki's bizarre behavior leaves everyone present stunned, so Bear has no choice but to take her away from the party. Once they return home, Bear wants to have a serious talk with Nikki, but Nikki just apologizes incessantly, giving him absolutely no chance to speak. Staring at the innocent-looking Nikki, Bear can no longer endure it, prompting him to propose a breakup. Yet, upon learning that Bear wants to split up with her, Nikki suddenly becomes highly agitated. However, the crazier Nikki gets, the firmer Bear's resolve becomes, as he is absolutely determined to break up with her. Much to Bear's surprise, in order to prevent the breakup, Nikki actually runs to the kitchen to grab a knife, threatening Bear with her own life that she will end it if he dares to leave. Faced with Nikki's threat, Bear can only helplessly abandon the idea. In the early hours of the morning, Bear suddenly receives a text message from Sarah, saying she is at the apartment entrance and wants him to come outside for a bit. Glancing at the fast-asleep Nikki, Bear assumes she is completely out, so he quietly slips out of the house. It turns out Sarah has landed a new job and is about to leave the city, so she comes over this time to say her goodbyes to Bear. Learning that Sarah is leaving, Bear feels quite reluctant to see her go. Throughout their years of knowing each other, he feels Sarah is a wonderful girl who possesses not only a great temper, but also an excellent personality. If it weren't for Nikki, Bear would definitely pursue Sarah. Hearing Bear's words, Sarah gets a little excited herself, bringing up tonight's game and asking Bear to give her a kiss. But right as Bear is about to lean in, the car window is suddenly shattered. Staring at this horrifying scene before his eyes, Bear is completely scared out of wits. Yet, looking at her own masterpiece, Nikki shows zero remorse, even running up to Bear to act all cute and spoiled. Under Nikki's threat, Bear has no choice but to carry the deceased Sarah into the car and bury her in the back mountains. Nikki's toxic need for control drives Bear to a complete emotional breakdown. Early the next morning, he visits the crystal shop where he previously bought the necklace, intending to purchase another one-wish willow to cancel out his previous wish. Looking at the frantic Bear, the shop owner Harry also recalls the phone call from that day, explaining to Bear that the one-wish willow isn't nearly as magical as he thinks, and that it's just an ordinary commercial product. But Bear, having experienced everything firsthand, completely disagrees. Subsequently, he buys the remaining one-wish willows, preparing to cancel out his previous wish. With no options left, the desperate Bear can only track down Ian. He shares his ordeal with him, explaining that ever since he made a wish upon the one-wish willow, Nikki has fallen head over heels for him, but her love is warped and twisted to the point where he can no longer endure such torment. He pulls out the newly purchased one-wish willow, begging Ian to help him undo the wish. Yet, confronted with Bear's explanation, Ian doesn't believe it at all, assuming Bear has simply suffered a mental breakdown from Nikki's relentless torment.
But he's real. Wish for $1 billion.
Watching cash rain down from the sky like a downpour, Ian is also stupefied, finally believing Bear's words. The two arrive at the apartment, hoping to put a stop to the maniacal Nikki. But much to their surprise, Nikki's emotions are violently unstable, as she has not only moved Sarah's body into the house, but is also taking her rage out frantically on the corpse. Having just entered the house, Ian is also petrified by this sight. But before he can even react, he is shot and unalived by Nikki right on the spot.
Rip my eye.
Staring at the rampaging Nikki, Bear can no longer take it. Remembering what the customer service agent said earlier about how perhaps the wish can only be broken if he himself passes away. He goes into the bathroom and pulls out a pistol, but when he points the muzzle at himself, he fails to pull the trigger. Just then, he notices the sleeping pills sitting in the alcove. Promptly, he swallows a massive handful of sleeping pills. Watching the blood-drenched Nikki, Bear's mind is exceptionally peaceful. And as the drug takes effect, Bear loses consciousness. The exact moment he passes away, the frantic Nikki finally regains her consciousness. Staring at the carnage around her, Nikki bursts into hysterical, agonizing wails. And that wraps up everything for the latest 2026 thriller hit, Obsession. Overall, the movie is fantastic, as it skillfully twists a sickening conceit into a deviously crowd-pleasing ploy, making it both dauntingly disturbing and packed with amusement and thrills. And the point of the movie is not how magical the one-wish willow is, but rather that, in reality, Bear never wants a normal relationship, but a woman who will never reject him and always revolves around his entire existence. But once this wish actually materializes, he finally discovers that love devoid of boundaries isn't romance at all, but a horrifying form of absolute control. The more Nikki loves him, the more suffocated he feels. Therefore, while this film appears on the surface to be about the backlash of making a wish, it actually conveys that if a person only desires the end result without being willing to respect the other party's choices, what they receive in the end can never be love, but only an absolute disaster. All right, that is all for today. We will see each other in the next episode.